In my experience, most people are operating far below their true potential. If I had to put a number on it, I'd say around 50%, maybe 51% on a good day. Think about that. Half your capacity, half your energy, half your talent, half your life. I often ask students, or really anyone who's willing to reflect, this one simple question. How much time do you waste every day? Not just time spent resting or relaxing, because that's necessary. I'm talking about the hours that slip through your fingers doing things you don't even enjoy. Hours spent scrolling through social media, watching videos that add no value, procrastinating on tasks that matter, or staring at your phone for no real reason. The answer I usually get? Somewhere around 4 to 6 hours per day. And most of the time, people don't even realize how much time that really is. Let's say you waste 4 hours a day. That's 28 hours a week. That's over 100 hours every month. That's more than 1,200 hours every single year. You know what that adds up to? About 6 full work months just gone. And what's worse is that it's not just about the hours. It's what you're missing out on during those hours. That's time you could be learning, building, improving, creating, connecting. That's time you could use to start a business, learn a language, get in shape, write a book, master a skill, or even just think deeply, something we barely allow ourselves to do anymore. Instead, we give our attention away to things we don't care about, and sometimes even things that make us feel worse. Now let's break it down financially. If your time is worth even $20 an hour, that's $100 a day, $700 a week, $2,800 a month. Over a year, that's over $33,000. And that's just at $20 an hour. If your potential is higher, say $50 an hour, when you factor in your future earnings, your skills, your growth potential, that's $82,000 a year down the drain. Just wasted like it means nothing. But the truth is, your time isn't nothing. It's everything. Time is the one resource you can't get back. You can lose money and earn it again. You can lose things and replace them. But once time is gone, it's gone. And the younger you are, the more valuable your time is because you have more of it. The sooner you start using it wisely, the more powerful your future becomes. Wasting time in your 20s is far more costly than wasting time later on, because those are the years that compound. That's when momentum is built. So the question is this: what would happen if you stopped wasting time? Not just a little. What if you really committed? What if you looked at every hour as a building block for your future? What if you took every opportunity seriously, treated each day like a chance to gain ground instead of losing it? How much more productive could you become? 2 times, 5 times, 10 times, maybe more. You don't really know what your true capacity is until you stop holding yourself back. Some people become so efficient, so focused, so clear-minded that it almost seems unreal. They're not superhuman, they're just not wasting time anymore. They've aligned their habits with their goals. This is where the Pareto principle comes in, the 80-20 rule. A small number of your efforts can produce the majority of your results. But here's the deeper truth. A small number of focused people create the majority of the impact in this world. And you could be one of them, if you choose to be. So where do you start? What's the one skill that changes everything? Writing. That might not sound flashy at first, but hear me out. Writing isn't just about putting words on paper. It's about thinking. Clear writing is clear thinking. If you can write well, you can think well. If you can think well, you can act with purpose. You can make better decisions. You can solve problems. You can influence. You can lead. The crazy part? Most people go through school, and no one ever explains why writing actually matters. They're told to do essays for a grade or follow a format to pass the test, but no one tells them the truth. You learn to write so you can learn to think. And thinking, real thinking, is what gives you the power to win in life. People who can think clearly, speak persuasively, and write with purpose are unstoppable. They can lead others. They can explain ideas. They can challenge false beliefs. They can negotiate, influence, inspire, and build. If you develop that skill, no matter where you start from, you will not stay stuck. You will rise. I've met and studied people who became extraordinarily successful, and one thing they all have in common: they know how to communicate. You don't want to argue with them, not because they're aggressive, but because they're precise. They'll dismantle your ideas, not to hurt you, but to build something better. They don't attack people, they attack flawed thinking. That's the kind of sharpness you want to develop. That's the kind of power that no one can take from you. And it starts by respecting your time, taking your potential seriously, and learning how to think. So here's the bottom line. If your life isn't where you want it to be, look at how you're spending your time. Track it honestly. Face the truth. Then start small. Cut 1 hour of waste each day and use it to build something. Write something. Learn something. Train yourself. You don't have to change everything overnight. But if you commit to using even a small part of your day intentionally, the effects compound. The gap between who you are and who you could be will start to close. And the more you close that gap, the more powerful you become. Not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. You are capable of so much more. But you have to stop letting your potential rot in the shadows of distraction and delay. You have to stop giving away your most valuable asset, your time, for nothing. Use it. Build something. Learn to write. Learn to think. And then, change the world. If you're going to make a point, whether in a conversation, a debate, a meeting, or even a casual discussion, you have to come prepared. You need to know what you're saying and why you're saying it. Because if the other person has their ideas lined up and you don't, you're going to come off as scattered, unprepared, and maybe even foolish. And let's be real, people can sense when you're not organized. They may not always say it, but they'll feel it. If you can't express your thoughts clearly, if you can't explain your position or defend your ideas, you won't get far. Not in work, not in relationships, not in life. But here's the good news. If you can express yourself well, if you can lay out your arguments in a coherent, compelling way, everything starts to change. If you can make a solid presentation, speak to others confidently, clearly lay out a plan or a proposal, doors open. People give you chances. They give you resources. They offer opportunities. Why? Because good communication builds trust. It shows competence. It signals leadership. And one of the best ways to become more organized, more clear-minded, and more powerful in how you operate, make a schedule and actually stick to it. Now, let's talk about that, because a lot of people get this wrong right from the start. When people hear schedule, they often think of something rigid and oppressive, something that locks them into a prison of tasks and responsibilities. That's not what a schedule should be. The problem is, people create schedules that they hate. They fill their day with things they think they're supposed to do, with no thought to how they feel doing them. So they make this long, joyless list of chores and duties, and surprise, by mid-afternoon, they're burned out and playing video games or doom scrolling just to escape it. That's not a real schedule. That's self-punishment. The trick is this: design your schedule like you're designing your ideal day. Ask yourself, if I could create the best possible day for tomorrow, something that's both productive and enjoyable, what would it look like? Then build that. Make it realistic. Make it balanced, but make it yours. Fill it with meaningful work, yes, but also with breaks, rewards, creative time. Time with people you care about. Design it so it's a day you'd actually want to live. Now, of course, there has to be some responsibility in there. You're not 12 years old anymore. If you're going to make progress, you need structure. You can't just float through life doing only what feels good in the moment. But the goal is to find a balance, a healthy mix of obligation and reward. Enough challenge to grow, enough freedom to stay energized. Here's a practical way to look at it. Maybe 20% of your day is things you have to do. Could be more if you're behind on stuff. That's fine. Just ask yourself, what's the right ratio of work to play today? Treat yourself like someone you're managing, like someone you care about and want to help succeed. If you had an employee who worked for you, you wouldn't expect them to grind non-stop without breaks. You'd negotiate with them. You'd ask, okay, you've got some tough tasks today. What can we build in to keep you motivated? How do we make this a good day, not just a productive one? You can and should ask yourself the same thing. Maybe that means an hour of focused work followed by 20 minutes of reading, gaming, a walk outside, whatever refuels you. It's not about earning your rest. It's about designing a system that works. And here's the reality. You're not going to follow your perfect plan every day. You'll miss things. You'll slip up. That's normal. Don't expect perfection. Just aim to hit the target more often than you miss. Even hitting your schedule 70% of the time is way better than 0%. Even 50% is a huge improvement if you're starting from chaos. And from there, you build. If you followed your schedule 50% this week, aim for 51% next week, or 50.5%. It doesn't matter how small the step is, as long as it's forward. Because eventually, you'll cross a tipping point where the effort you put in starts to pay you back. Your good days multiply. Your routines reinforce your growth. And instead of spiraling downward, you start spiraling up. That's the power of structure. That's the value of a schedule. It's not about control, it's about clarity, about building days you're proud of, about creating a life that feels intentional, not accidental. So take a step back. Think about what you want your day to look like, then build it. One block at a time, one decision at a time, one better choice at a time. And trust me, if you keep showing up, it compounds. Imagine just for a moment what the world could look like if we all got our act together. Not perfectly, not flawlessly, but honestly and earnestly. Imagine if people, on a wide scale, simply stopped making things worse. Because here's the hard truth. Many people don't just fail to do what's good. They actively contribute to making life harder for themselves and for everyone around them. Why? Out of spite, out of resentment, out of arrogance, dishonesty, bitterness, jealousy, or even cruelty. Sometimes it's subtle, a snide comment here, a passive-aggressive move there, but sometimes it becomes something much darker: violence, destruction, even atrocities. These traits, when bundled together unchecked, form something profoundly pathological, something capable of corrupting entire communities, even nations. Now imagine if all of that stopped. If people, even without doing good, simply stopped doing harm. We truly have no idea how much better things could get just from that one change. The absence of destruction itself would be revolutionary. But this dynamic isn't just about grand acts of evil or visible malice. It's tied to something much deeper, something woven into the fabric of the human condition. It's the interplay between our vulnerability, the fear of judgment from others, and perhaps most importantly, our unwillingness to take on the responsibility we know we're meant to carry. It's not just that your own future depends on you stepping up. It's not just about your success or your growth or your healing. It's about everyone you're connected to. Because no matter how small you might feel in the grand scheme of things, you are not insignificant. You are not just a speck floating in a sea of 7 or 8 billion people. You are a node in a network, and networks matter. Think about it. Over the course of your life, you'll meet thousands of people. You'll influence them through your words, your actions, your example. Each of those people will influence thousands more. Suddenly, you're just 1 or 2 degrees of separation from millions. That's not theory, that's math. That's how social structures work. And now with the reach of social media and digital communication, that influence is even more amplified. So when you choose to do good or not to do harm, it ripples. Like a stone dropped into a pond, your decisions send out waves. You may never see where those waves land, but they will land. Someone will be affected, encouraged, discouraged, strengthened, or broken because of something you did or didn't do. And once you realize that, really realize it, the world starts to feel heavier. It starts to matter. And that can be terrifying. Because if what you do actually counts, then you're no longer free to live as if nothing matters. You're no longer free to avoid responsibility by pretending that your actions are inconsequential. And you might say, well, isn't that better than living a meaningless life? Sure, on the surface, but it's not that simple. When really given the choice, many people would rather embrace meaninglessness than responsibility. Because if nothing matters, then you're free. You can't fail. You can't be blamed. You can't disappoint anyone. You can suffer, but at least there's no burden to carry, no standard to live up to, no risk of letting the world down. That's the strange bargain of nihilism. Yes, it's miserable, but it comes with a twisted comfort. You don't have to act. You don't have to try. You can stay curled in your suffering and tell yourself there's no point to trying anyway. And people will sympathize. They'll pity you. They'll say, yeah, life's just hard. It's meaningless. It's chaos. And suddenly you've built an identity on powerlessness, on victimhood. You've taken the role of the martyr. And for some, that's a seductive position. But here's the cost. You trade potential for pity. You trade purpose for passivity. You trade a meaningful life for a tolerable one, and all the while that emptiness grows. It doesn't have to be that way. Because the opposite path is always available, and it starts with one simple idea. Take responsibility. Start small. Clean up your life. Own your choices. Speak the truth. Act with courage. Carry your share of the weight. And then, when you're ready, help someone else carry theirs too. That's not easy. In fact, it's the hardest path there is, but it's also the only one that leads somewhere worth going. Alexander Solzhenitsyn discovered this the hard way. He endured the gulags of Soviet Russia, the very definition of hell on earth. And instead of coming out of that experience broken and bitter, he came out with a revelation. When individuals live lies, when they choose comfort over courage, and when enough people do that, they don't just ruin their own lives, they ruin the world. When people live pathologically, society itself becomes pathological. And history has shown us, over and over, that enough personal corruption leads to collective catastrophe. The 20th century is filled with chilling examples: totalitarian regimes, genocides, mass atrocities, all fueled by people who chose resentment over responsibility, who preferred power to truth, who passed off their own moral cowardice as someone else's fault. If you have the strength, read the Gulag Archipelago. Not just to witness what hell on earth looks like, but to understand how it's built. It's not constructed in a day. It's not the work of one villain. It's built slowly, day by day, by ordinary people making 1,000 small decisions to avoid the truth, to betray their conscience, and to turn away from responsibility. So you have to ask yourself, if your actions shape your life, and your life shapes others, then what kind of world are you helping to create? It starts with you. Every single day, it starts with you. Choose meaning, choose truth, choose responsibility, even if it's heavy, especially when it's heavy, because the alternative isn't freedom. The alternative is slow decay, and you're not meant for that. None of us are. Nobody can thrive without structure. It's just not possible. You can try for a while to live in chaos. You can resist the idea of routine, treat it like some kind of trap, something that kills your freedom. But eventually, that kind of freedom becomes a prison of its own. One filled with confusion, instability, stress, and regret. So let's be blunt. You need a routine. Everyone does. Without one, your life slips into disorder and your mind follows. Your sleep gets thrown off, your focus fades, your motivation disappears, and you start losing track of what even matters anymore. If you don't already have a routine, now's the time to start building one. It doesn't need to be rigid or robotic, but it must be intentional. Start with something simple. Pick a time to get up every morning. Whatever time works best for your life, but stick to it. Because when you wake up at different times every day, you're not just losing hours, you're disrupting your circadian rhythm. And that rhythm regulates more than sleep. It regulates your energy, your emotional stability, your overall mental health. When that system is out of sync, everything else in your life starts to drift with it. Then start shaping the rest of your day. But don't just fill your calendar with tasks and to-dos that feel like punishment. That's a trap people fall into all the time. They create a schedule that feels more like a prison sentence than a life plan. And of course, they end up resenting it, procrastinating, and then feeling guilty afterward. It's a loop, and it's exhausting. Instead, try this. Plan a life you'd actually want to live. That's the real goal. Sit down and think, if I had a day that I could be proud of and actually enjoy, what would that day look like? Make a schedule that reflects that vision. Include the responsibilities, sure, but also carve out time for creativity, rest, play, social connection, and reflection. Build something you'll want to stick to. And here's where it gets deeper. One of the ways you plan a better life is by paying attention to the world around you, by respecting social norms, looking at what works for others, what's considered good or admirable. In mythological terms, that's like rescuing your father from the belly of the whale. It's about recovering wisdom from tradition. But there's another layer to it too. You also need to sit down and have a real conversation with yourself, as if you're meeting someone you don't fully understand yet. Because the truth is, you don't. You're not fully honest with yourself. You've probably noticed this. You make plans, give yourself instructions, and then you just don't follow through. You say, tomorrow I'll start, and tomorrow comes, and you don't. It's like being your own terrible boss and your worst employee at the same time. You don't know what you want, and when you do figure it out, you won't even listen to yourself. So here's a thought. Fire yourself. Fire the version of you that's lazy, chaotic, self-sabotaging. But don't stop there. Rehire yourself with new terms. Treat yourself like someone you actually care about, someone whose life matters. That means learning to negotiate with yourself, not command yourself. You can't bully yourself into a better life. You have to build a relationship with yourself based on respect, not tyranny. Think about it like this. If you were managing another person, someone you really cared about, what kind of work life would you create for them? What kind of routine would help them grow, succeed, feel happy and balanced? That's what you should be offering yourself. And yes, it's hard, especially if you don't like yourself much. That's where many people get stuck. They live in this cycle of cracking the whip, burning out, procrastinating, feeling guilty, and then cracking the whip again. It's miserable, it's draining, it's boring, and it gets you nowhere. So what's the alternative? Humility. Step back. Look around your life. Just the part of it that's within your control. Your room, your body, your habits, your relationships. Ask, what needs fixing? Not in some grand cosmic sense, but right here, right now, what's broken, neglected, or out of order in your immediate world? Start there. Fix that. And beyond that, you need to actually figure out what you want. One of the main reasons people don't get what they want in life is because they never really define it. They never sit down and say, this is what a good life would look like for me. And even when they do, they often aim too low or aim for the wrong things. Because here's another truth. You might not even want what you think you want. Status, money, attention, success, those things aren't inherently bad, but they're also not guaranteed to fulfill you. What if there's something better than what you want? Something you haven't even imagined yet because you haven't stopped to ask, what would actually be good for you? That's a powerful question. What would be good for me? Not just what I desire, but what would actually make my life fuller, richer, more whole. To answer that, try imagining that you were responsible for taking care of yourself, but as if you were someone else. Imagine you had to nurture, guide, and protect the person you see in the mirror, like they were a loved one, not a burden. What kind of life would you want to give them? That's where it all begins. Because once you start treating yourself with that kind of care and intentionality, you'll stop being your own enemy. You'll stop living in chaos. You'll stop sabotaging your future just to escape discomfort in the present. You'll start to build something solid, something sustainable, a life worth showing up for. And all of that starts with a routine, one that works for you, not against you. One rooted in discipline, yes, but also in compassion, in clarity, and in the belief that your life is worth organizing. Because it is. Let's say you really wanted the best for someone. Not just in theory, not just, I hope they do well, but in a serious, invested way. You want their life to go as well as it possibly could. What would that actually look like? To answer that, you'd have to do something most people don't bother to do. You'd have to sit down and think, really think. You'd need to ask, what would their life need to look like, day to day, year to year, for things to truly be good for them? Not perfect, not easy, but meaningful, stable, fulfilling, worth living. And here's the twist. Most people don't do this for themselves. They don't sit down and say, all right, I've been given a life, it's mine, it's difficult, yes, but it's something. So where do I want to take it? They drift, they react, they hope, but they rarely plan. What if, instead, you took the time to really figure it out? What if you asked yourself 3 years from now, what would I need to build in order to have what I truly need? Not everything, not fantasies, not illusions, but the things that would genuinely be good for you. The kind of life you'd look at and say, yeah, this was worth the work. The truth is, you can't have everything. That's a given. Life doesn't work like that. But you can have what's good for you. You can build something meaningful. But first, you need to define it. And that's where most people fall. They never set the terms. They never decide what success would actually look like. And if you don't define it, how could you possibly reach it? Success, by its very nature, is narrow, specific. It's like hitting the bullseye on a dartboard in the dark. If you don't even know what wall the board's on, the chance you hit the target by accident? 0. But here's the encouraging part. My experience has shown me that if people do figure out what would be good for them, if they sit down, take the time, and make a clear decision, then aim at it honestly and consistently, they often get it. It's not a guarantee, of course. Life throws curveballs. But there's something about orienting yourself toward the good, toward what's right for you, that moves you closer, even when you stumble. And yes, the process is messy. You don't chart a straight line to your destination. You start with a goal, and as you move toward it, you learn. You adjust, you refine, you correct. Your aim changes not because you were wrong, but because walking the path gives you better vision. You discover more about what you truly need along the way. But none of this works unless you start with a serious question. What do I want? And deeper than that, what would actually be good for me? Now, wanting something in this context isn't just daydreaming. It's not wishful thinking or casual hoping. It's not, I'd like this if the universe just handed it to me. No. Real wanting means reorienting your life in every way possible to make the goal achievable. It means changing your habits, your thinking, your behaviors, your environment. It means sacrificing the things that don't serve that goal. And it means being willing to say no to 1,000 other possibilities so you can say yes to the one that actually matters. That's what it means to ask for something with your whole being, to want something with seriousness, not entitlement, but commitment. You're not just wishing, you're choosing, and you're proving it with your actions. That's a sacrificial idea, because it implies limits. You can't have it all, but maybe, just maybe, you can have what you truly need. But first, you have to look in the mirror, and that's where it gets uncomfortable. Sit down on your bed in silence whenever you're alone and ask yourself, what stupid things am I doing regularly that are absolutely sabotaging my life? Be honest. Not cruel, but honest. You already know the answer. Deep down, you know what you're doing that's wrecking your progress. It's not hidden. It's not mysterious. But we hide from it. We bury it under distraction, excuses, and denial. But if you really ask that question and you really want the answer, you'll get it. And when it comes, it won't be gentle. It might sting, it might embarrass you, but it will be true. And truth, even when painful, is your best guide forward. The trick is you have to want to know, not pretend to ask, not mouth the words while secretly hoping the answer never comes. You have to decide that you're ready to face what's holding you back. And once you do, things can change fast, so fast it might shock you. This is where transformation begins, not in motivation posters or fleeting inspiration, but in the quiet decision to face yourself fully, define what's worth aiming at, and start walking. Even if it's slow, even if it's messy. Because the act of aiming, of adjusting, of sacrificing, that is where you begin to become the person you were meant to be. So here's where this all leads. Because none of this has just been about theory or philosophy. It's about you. It's about your life. The one life you get, and what you choose to do with it. At some point, you have to stop standing at the edge of your potential and step into it. Not perfectly, not all at once, but deliberately, step by step, decision by decision. Because the truth is, no one's coming to build your life for you. No one's going to hand you clarity, discipline, meaning, or purpose wrapped in a neat little box. It's on you, always has been. And I know that's a heavy thing to realize. It's not comfortable. It's not always encouraging at first, because it means your future is not something to be discovered. It's something to be created. It means you don't get to blame your past forever. You don't get to outsource your suffering or your failure or your stagnation to other people. Not if you're serious about getting better. But here's the gift hidden inside that responsibility. You can change things. You can make something of your life. No matter how broken it feels right now, no matter how far off course you've wandered, you are not finished, you are not stuck, and you are not beyond repair. But you have to want it, not casually, not conditionally, not in some vague, one day when I feel ready way. You have to want it seriously, deeply, with everything you've got. You have to look your current self in the eye and say, this isn't all I am, and it's not all I will be. Because here's the truth that most people never really face. You don't have to be extraordinary to start living differently. You just have to be honest. You have to be willing. Willing to look at the ways you're sabotaging yourself. Willing to stop pretending you don't know what you're doing wrong. Willing to accept that progress will be hard, boring, repetitive, and worth it. And yes, you'll mess up. You'll fail. You'll have days where you fall short of your goals, where you break your word to yourself, where you slide back into old habits and wonder if any of this is even worth it. And on those days, your mind will try to convince you to give up, to go back to comfort, to drift, to stay small. But that's where you remember who you're becoming. You're not building a perfect life. You're building a real one. Something rooted in truth. Something worth waking up for. Something that doesn't just benefit you, but everyone around you. Because the impact you make when you get your life in order doesn't stop with you. It spreads. It shapes the people you love, the people you work with, even people you've never met. And over time, it starts to shape the world. This isn't about some grand, heroic moment where everything changes overnight. It's about the quiet discipline of showing up every day with a bit more clarity, a bit more courage, a bit more conviction. It's about writing a better story with your life, not waiting for one, writing it. With your habits, with your choices, with your character. So the question becomes, are you going to keep waiting for things to change? Or are you going to be the one who changes them? You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start. Start small, start messy, start now. Sit down. Ask the hard questions. Make a plan. Commit to it. Fail, adjust, and keep going. Don't stop. Because your future, your real future, isn't built in the moments where you feel strong. It's built in the moments where you decide to act, even when you don't. And that future, that meaningful life that's possible for you, it's not waiting at the finish line. It's waiting at the starting line. So take the first step. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now.